And I just want to tell you that, once again, that we are not meeting next week or the week after on Zoom. But I am suggesting that maybe we could meet in the park and properly distance. If you bring a chair and you bring your lunch, I'll bring individually packaged dessert. So think about it, and either let me know or I'll call, I'll send you a message and you let me know then. So meanwhile,
What time are you talking about?
lunchtime.
What time?
You want, oh, well, it could be, I don't know why exactly we're doing it at 12:30, but we have no limit if we do it in the park. We could do it at noon, 11:30. Does that seem like a reasonable time? All right, just, I'm not asking for
Are you
any,
serving lunch?
I'm serving dessert. There will be little bites or, something in a package. Don't get too
Pre-wrapped.
pre-wrapped. Everything will be pre-wrapped. And, all right, does anybody have a problem with fruit that's I wash with gloves on? No soap, but I will wash it. Carefully, and I think I'll bring some grapes. All right.
No problem. It sounds like a good idea. And are you talking about Grace Avenue Park?
Yes, I'm talking about Grace Avenue Park. I will send a formal invitation, and I will expect a formal reply, so I can count how many grapes. All right, then. So we are having a musical, and as a special gift from me, I'm not singing. So, and those who are bat mitzvahed with me will know that I'm the best lip syncer in the world. So I am happy to leave. Well, we actually aren't going to have anybody singing. I was considering it, but I wasn't so sure about the music transition. I know the cantor does okay, but I was going to ask, and maybe I will if I get enough of an interest. I was going to ask Stuart DeLotte to sing from Fiddler on the Roof for us, but I thought it was a little chancy, not from his point of view, but just from doing it on Zoom. I don't really know. So anyway, I do have some announcements at the end, but I know you are waiting. We are going to talk about not Jewish music over the centuries and not Jewish music from every aspect or academically. We are going to talk about Jewish music that in vignettes. And the first one is going to be about cantorial music, because certainly is very much a centerpiece of music and Jews. So we are very lucky to have Ashley Nemiroff, who I don't see on here, but I know he's here. So he's not on my line. But Carol, there he is. Thanks. Ashley was fortunate or unfortunate, we will ask him, to be the nephew of a very well-known cantor, and will give us some inside impressions of cantorial role in early 20th century, mid 20th century? What is the period that you're particularly going to talk about, Ashley?
I would say from 30s till whenever.
Okay, so I'd say sort of mid-century, 20th century cantorial role. Okay. Take it away, Ashley.
Okay, just to let everybody be relaxed, I'm not going to sing because my voice is probably worse than Rona's. My uncle was born in Borough Park, just to give you a background. His father was the first shaykhit in Borough Park. And all his siblings, 5 kids, were born in Borough Park. He was an excellent athlete, he ran track for Lincoln High School. But his father was so adamant that he become a chazan that he had to give everything up, and he went to cantorial school. I believe the first person he ever married in my family was my parents. And since then, he's probably married untold members of my family, including Rayanne and I, my daughter, and everybody else in my family. I have a picture, if you care, I'll show you of, oops, everything just fell on the floor. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, this my, yeah.
I assume that was your wedding?
That was my wedding,
Yes.
and this was my daughter's wedding. His hair sort of got gray, but was artificial gray. He became a cantor at the Shanks Paramount Hotel in the Catskills, and he would be there for the high holidays and Pesach. When they went out of business, or he got another job at the Pines Hotel, he must have been there for 25, 30 years. They did treat him like a rock star. People would say they would come for Passover just to hear him. And the owners loved him. And one time we went up just like the last 3-4 days of Pesach just to visit, and the owner refused to take any money from us. So they comped us for the whole time we were there. The only thing we had to do was we had to promise to tip the help. Most of his work, besides he never became a cantor of a temple, because I believe he probably made more money doing that. And he became the second highest paid cantor in the mountains. The only one that was paid more than him was Richard Tucker, who was the chazan at the Concord. Let's see. In those days, the cantors also they sang, people would hire them to sing for their weddings. They weren't hooked up with, like it is now with the, what is it?
The caterer?
Whoever runs the caterers. So some weeks he would have 2 or 3 weddings on the weekends. And one of the things we used to laugh about was one time he said he got 3 weddings from one, because a couple that he performed the wedding for divorced. Both of them hired him for the next wedding. But he was treated, wherever he was, he was known.
What was his name?
I guess Avram Dubal. I guess it's really not a sad thing. He passed away at 100 about a year ago, and it was just family at the funeral. I believe, timing is everything. If you die young, a lot of people come to your funeral. But he would have had at least 1,000 people at his funeral. But that's basically what it was. And wherever he was, people would look up to him, and they would also think that he was a brilliant guy because he was a cantor. But I don't know if those go together. And that's my story.
So tell us, do you think, was he a religious man?
Yes, he was a religious man. As a matter of fact, when my daughter was married, Rabbi Waxman was not there. I think he was lecturing the Pope at the time. But my uncle said that if he's there with Waxman, he's not going to turn his back to the Torah. He's not going to face the audience like everybody else does. But Waxman wasn't there. But he was Orthodox. But he did have women in his choir at the Pines Hotel, which was unusual.
Well, how did he have, were these professionals in his choir, or were they?
I think they were not professional, but they were They were, some of them I think were professional, that I'm not sure of, but they really were with him for many years. As a matter of fact, one time the hotel got in trouble and they couldn't pay them. He paid them everybody out of his own pocket. Laura wants to know if I have a recording. I do, but I don't have it in front of me now. But we do have a disc of him singing.
Did he record? I mean, did he record commercially, or was he?
I think every cantor does their own shtick. You know, they record something, and it wasn't. You know, it was sold, but I don't know if it's professional.
So what did he do the rest of the year if he was only working for?
Rest of the year, he became a stockbroker. So my brother used to laugh. My brother was a stockbroker, and he used to laugh. He called him the singing stockbroker.
Calls from Terry.
He also managed some real estate for a while. Then he went into the stock market.
Uh-huh. So,
Let me hang up on my sister-in-law.
okay. Okay. So did he ever spend any time? Oh, no, I know I was going to ask. Did he teach you bar mitzvah?
Actually, he taught bar mitzvah, and I think Sherry spent many years going to him. She's my first cousin, and she was learning trup from him.
Mm-hmm. But did you?
I can't sing for.
No, but you were a bar mitzvah, so.
Yes, I was a bar mitzvah, but you know, but it was in Young Israel, so nobody ever listens to anybody at Young Israel, so it didn't matter because everybody's talking all the time.
Okay. So thank you very much. We just wanted to know, a lot. He had a regular life, and.
Yeah, he had a regular life, 3 really nice kids, and 2 of them were in his choir with him.
Okay.
What did you say his name was?
Avram Dubal,
Dubal.
Ubow.
Okay, very good. And he lived there all his life in the same.
No, he lived in Long Beach.
Okay.
He was in Borough Park until till he got married, and then he moved to Flatbush, probably around where you lived, and then they moved to Long Beach.
Oh, okay. So, thank you. So, did he hear your children? Well, you lived to 100, so I'm sure he had all of his relatives. You said you had 55 first cousins?
Yeah, he performed
Yeah, he was very busy.
Alicia's wedding, and couple of his grandchildren's weddings.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was we wanted a little insight into in being so when he had a room, or when he came, or did he have a suite? I'm sure they taught him.
We're in the hotel.
Yeah.
His wife never had to do Pesach for maybe 50 years because they gave him and his kids rooms when they went up. They really looked up to him. As I said, like we came up and they comped us for like 4 days.
Yes. Well, was he popular? I mean, during the day, did people flock around him? And I mean, was he?
Yeah, well, people would come around him, and he loved to dance. And all of a sudden, I remember it was a long time ago. Somebody says, "Gee, I can't believe the chazan is dancing," like it was a terrible thing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to just add just a couple of things because I didn't grow up in New York, and certainly this was before my time anyway. But my in-laws always talked about the chazan being really big, as you said, rock stars, and that people would go from synagogue to synagogue over the holidays to listen to I'm talking really long ago, and when even the immigrant generation didn't didn't have radio, didn't listen, probably Orthodox wouldn't anyway, and their form of entertainment was to hear one cantor after another to sing, and they would.
Yeah, absolutely. People, like on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, people would try and sneak into Kotzovitsky Shul and Temple Bethel and Borough Park. And they would have police to keep people out.
Right, and I know even like, and that they all cantors tend to be musical stars, like the Zim Brothers. Zim Brothers were, I'm sure that certainly which one is it, Paul? Which one was in Queens?
I think Paul.
Saul.
So, I know he was friendly with them, but he's actually more friendly with the cantor from the Great Neck Synagogue, Shulman.
Yeah, I'm sure, right.
They were best friends.
Yeah, I think although he was at a conservative synagogue, I don't know this necessarily he was a.
They still talk to each other. In those days, they talked to each
They
other.
talk to each other anyway, and so I do remember that being out of town, that I don't think that there was the same appreciation in Norfolk, where I was, for cantorial music per se. And I didn't grow up with, we always had a decent cantor, but I think that they were better known for the way they chased women. So I don't think that, that was, I'm sure, your uncle's way of handling his adoring crowds. But it seems to me that it is a, I think we have even had here, I won't even mention any names, some cantors who were, had a reputation one way or another for.
Well, they all have huge egos.
Well,
And if there were two people in a room and a piano, he would sit down and just put on a show. So that's part of their ego, I guess. But
yes,
but loved what they were doing.
But I think they also wanted a community. They wanted to create a community, and they had a religious position that was more important than the rabbis, because they had to be. They were speaking for they were praying for the congregation in a way that the rabbi was only a teacher, but they were the communicators. So I don't know if that was a reputation that I grew up with particularly, but that's certainly what should be. So anyway, thank you very much. So anybody else has the cantorial story to tell about in their family or their relationship? Did anybody raise their hand, want to say that they had a special relationship with the cantor in their synagogue along the way anyway? Okay. All right. So then let us go on. We're going to go slightly in a different direction with music and Jews, but it's certainly there are cantors that are entertainers now. We have the three cantors. I know I have heard many different I know the PBS always brings in cantors to sing when they're doing fundraising. And obviously there still is an appreciation and a following for cantorial music. And we are going to find, I think probably everybody here has heard if not live, then has heard our new cantor who's coming, has been singing, and I think we look forward to, I'm sure, new melodies and all kinds of programs that he's going to institute as well. They have a wonderful function in the synagogue, and their music is very important to being Jewish. So thank you. And now I am going to call on, yes, someone who can't say no to me. And music in Judaism has been important, an important part of our life, and my married life. And for the last 53 years, I have been educated, and I am happy to share some of my education. I'm not my educator with the with those here, as I asked my husband Joseph, who has been a lifelong enthusiast. In fact, knowing the name, the color of the, not only the record companies, but the color of the labels on records. So if anybody wants him, while we're not going to be talking about popular music of that kind, anybody who wants to quiz him, who has a label in mind, just ask him. Here. Come on, Bobo. Oh, I have a minute. He's going to talk about the American, the Jews and the American, the Great American Songbook. Forgive me. Okay.
Hi. How you doing?
Okay. You can start, Joseph. Whatever you start, you're on.
Irving Berlin defined popular culture in the United States for more than 60 years. In fact, when fellow composer Jerome Kern was asked what Irving Berlin's place in popular music was, Kern said he doesn't have any place. He is popular music in the United States. So okay. For the first part of the 20th century, a small group of men and one woman reshaped American popular music. They created a new genre. Their songs and stories formed a unified culture of America. The results of this got to be called Great American Song. Music was very important part of the culture that came along with the immigrants from Europe. Yiddish folk tunes and cantorial chants were familiar to everyone. The sons of these immigrants became the backbone of the exciting new music that I'm going to talk about. Names such as George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin, Harold Arlen, Jerome Kern, Richard Rodgers, Oscar Hammerstein, and Larry Hart were among the most famous. The giant among these giants, however, was of course Irving Berlin, who was responsible for creating a professional mechanism for composers. And he also wrote 1,000 songs, which I'll talk about later. Back in those days, when you wrote a song, there were no records, there was sheet music. And when you wrote a song, you took it to a publisher. And the center of the publishing business was East 27th Street and 6th Avenue. And it's called Tin Pan Alley. And you went to one of the publishers with your song, and if he liked it, he would offer you money for it, $50 for a song. $60 for a song. And then it wasn't your song anymore, you sold it. The result was that the publishers got very rich, and the composers, by and large, didn't get rich. So he organized the system, which later was named ASCAP, the American Society of Composers and Publishers. And what that was all the composers and publishers got together and made a system whereby when a song was played on the radio, or a band played it in a concert, or whatever, they had to pay. They had to pay for the rights to use the song, and they would pay into a fund, the ASCAP fund, and every month the money would be redistributed among the various composers, and that way everybody got their proper share of the money. Berlin started life in Siberia as Israel Baleen, that was his name, B-A-L-I-N-E. His family name was Baleen, and he was Israel, and he was called by his family Izzy Baleen. His father, speaking of cantors, his father was an itinerant cantor, which means that he didn't have a regular job. So his father was an itinerant cantor, and his grandfather was a rabbi. And they didn't speak anything in their house except for Yiddish. And they came to this country, and the whole neighborhood just spoke Yiddish. So there was very little English being incorporated into their household. But somehow, with very little English being incorporated into their daily life, they began, when they began to write music, their knowledge of poetry, and it was amazing that they could come from that background and come up with some of the songs that they did. They lived in a Cold War tenement on the Lower East Side. He was unhappy, always unhappy in school. Talking about Izzy. And he was unhappy at home. And he dropped out of both at age 11. He left home, and he lived on the street, basically. He lived on the street, and he lived in flop houses. And how did he support himself? He sold newspapers on the street. He waited on tables in a saloon, and he tinkered with the piano, even though he had no formal training in music. He started to write little songs for himself, and he only played the black keys on a piano. He never played a white key of a piano throughout his entire life. Everything was in F sharp, and he had black keys. And that's how he composed music. And he had, later on, he had what's called a transposing piano. It was a piano that you could lift up a bar and move it over and change the key that the piano was playing in. And he used a transposing bar, and he used his own intuition. He never had a music lesson. He never had any piano lessons, but over the course of time, working in the bars and taverns where he was a waiter, he began to sing more and more and write songs more and more. And that led him to serious songwriting. And his first big hit, first of all, he wrote 1,000 songs. It's hard to believe. He wrote 1,000 songs, published songs I'm talking about. Many more unpublished songs. 1,000 published songs, of which 280 made it to the top 10 in the hit parade. 280 songs were in the top 10. He also, the way he wrote, in addition to the transposing piano, and his other way of writing was he had what was called a musical secretary. He invented this idea. He would play the piano and noodle out a song, a melody, and if he liked it, he would call in his musical secretary, who would hear Berlin hum the melody. Berlin would hum the melody, and the musical secretary would transcribe it and make a piece of paper with notes, which Irving Berlin couldn't do. So that was a technique that he used. His first hit was Alexander's Ragtime Band in 1914. And the hits just kept coming after that. And it's remarkable as it seems, two of his biggest hits were White Christmas and Easter Parade, which seemed ironic. They became standards. And then he got married, and his wife died in the honeymoon, and it was a very short marriage. They went to Cuba, and she didn't make it home from Cuba. And then he had a second wife who they had a marriage for 60 some odd years. And then he met, well, it's become a second wife, who is the daughter of a zillionaire who was anti-Semitic. And he wanted to discourage his daughter from marrying a Jew, marrying an entertainer and a Jew. That was a bad combination. And he was a rabid anti-Semite. And he sent her to Europe to try to break up the marriage, but nothing worked. And she came back with Irving from Europe, and the father got more serious, and he said, if you don't ditch Irving, I'm going to read you out of my will and out of the family. He was an extremely wealthy man. And she said, I want Irving. And she left the family. And he had 3 children, of which one died at a very young age. He had 2 daughters who lived to very old ages. Irving himself lived to 102. In addition to developing ASCAP and doing things for the composers, his fellow composers, he built the theater. He had a lot of money. He developed a lot of money from all these songs. He built the theater. It was there until very recent times, the Jewel Box Theater. And his idea in building the theater was that he wanted a place where a composer could have some kind of control. Before that, the control was a real estate man, and it wasn't always fair to the producers. So he created a beautiful theater, and he put on shows, and it was a commercial theater. He was an amazing man, and he was so talented. It's hard to fathom that he could have come where he did in life from the humble beginnings that started with him. And does anybody have any questions?
Can't see. Thanks, Joseph. All right, but just one thing you left out. I know you wanted to tell him, but what he did for his wife. When his father-in-law disinherited.
Oh yes, when she was disinherited, he took a song, Always, which we all know. I'm love you always, with a love that's true always. And he transferred the ownership of the song to his wife so that she would always have income coming in. The royalties on all these songs was tremendous. And also, he was when he read his daughter out of the family, it was right before the stock market crash. And about 3 weeks before the stock market crashed, his father-in-law had all his money in stocks, and he lost it all at a stock market crash. And he basically was broke. It's hard to believe that anybody like that could be broke. He had a mansion on the North Shore of Long Island, somewhere in Rockland, and he had servants and everything, and he was broke. And he started to break apart the house to let the servants go and all that. And word came back to his daughter that the father was selling the house and what kind of condition his family was in. So Irving went upstairs and took out his checkbook and wrote a tremendous check. Some say it was $1 million. I don't know if that's what it was. But he wrote a tremendous check, put it in an envelope, and sent it to his wife's father, who was not a nice person. And the check was deposited, and
It saved him, huh?
it saved the house and family, and he never got any acknowledgement from his father-in-law that he had done this. His father-in-law didn't come up to him and say, you know, you're really not a bad guy after all. And it was very, very telling. Anyway, that's what it is. And if anybody has any questions, let them speak. Otherwise,
Okay, come on. Okay, it's right by you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
love.
thank you very much.
Okay, so it's behind you. Eva,
Thank you.
thank you. Eva. Come on. Eva Yarrett, when I mentioned music, immediately thought about that if it weren't classical music, she wasn't interested. So she made me feel guilty. I don't know if she is with us today, but I do remember thinking about it. You know, it's such a tremendous subject that she actually, because she doesn't have the camera, really couldn't do it. But I was just not thinking about me and be able to discuss classical music, but what is classical music, modern classical music? And when you think about it, to a certain extent, we could say as an outshoot of their background and of their love of music, and even I would consider Gershwin, especially if he had lived, to be writing classical music. Let me ask Laura. How would you define classical music? I mean, would you agree that especially if it lived longer, Gershwin would have added to the classical world, Leonard Bernstein certainly, and then and of course Copland, and there were many Jews that went off into that area rather than into the area of more popular music, and I consider Porgy and Bess a folk opera. I mean, you know, it's